This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
You are locked in with Fourth and Frames, where tonight we are going to break down our plays and fades for Week 8. As usual, you got the usual suspects. Kyle Ziegler's in the house. Drew Scott is in the house. But tonight, baby, it's not just any old Week 8. We've got the Fantasy and Frames producer extraordinaire. More than hashtag just a producer, he is a cold commit enthusiast. He is also apparently a Harold Fannin enthusiast. Basically, probably the one guy that can give me a run on the tight end fever that I have. Jim, what's up, baby? How we doing tonight, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks. Yeah, sorry about Cole Komet. Anybody that listens.
It's not over yet. We're just getting started. It's not over yet.
That's fair. And in the guillotine league that you brought me into, I've tried to convince everybody else that's been cut with me to pick him up every week.
Yeah, I can't believe Cole Komet's still out there in the waivers in that guillotine league. It's unheard of. Kyle, you should pick him up.
Shots fired.
Yeah, my bad. That's right. You're not in it anymore either. My fault. Yeah. I'll see if I can pick him up for you. Brandon, the draft's not here quite yet. I want to know who you're a fan of. What team you're a fan of? If you're already thinking about the NFL draft, you a Jets fan or a Dolphins fan or something? I need you to let me know.
I think he's a Texans guy, isn't he?
Oh, is he a Texans guy?
Yeah. Can't be as bad as what I'm dealing with on a weekly basis.
Look, cool. Jim's already got more cheering for himself in the first 5 minutes than we've had for an entire season already. So
I'm saying.
Stacy, thank you for joining us. Oh, Aiden, it's so great that you're here.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
You shouldn't have came.
So glad because Aiden, you got chopped week 2, so he can't say nothing. And you currently can't say anything right now because – baby, check the standings of the AFC East. And as you can see, after talking so much trash, this is courtesy of the producer extraordinaire. You are currently second in the division behind America's team, the New England Patriots. So it is what it is, Aiden. We're glad you joined us, but you know what? We're going to have a little bit of fun at your expense whenever you're not here. He regrets attending.
Right here.
But while Aiden might regret attending, if you're here with us on YouTube, we'll be answering your questions as well. And if you watch us on YouTube and you want to support the Fantasy and Frames content, the best thing you can do is like this video and subscribe to the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel to catch anytime a new podcast or short form from us drops. Also, search for any of the podcasts here by name for Fantasy and Frames on whichever podcast platform you prefer. For us, that's the Fourth and Frames podcast. And don't forget to lock in at fantasyandframes.com for the latest articles for both Redraft and IDP, as well as our staff Dynasty rankings and all of our latest articles. Drew, Kyle, I had to give Jim his flowers off the rip. But you know what? I'd be feeling like a terrible host if I didn't check in on my 2 guys that are here with me pretty much on a weekly basis. So, Drew, how are we feeling tonight, dude?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Rams have a bye week this week, so I get to take a week off from being stressed out and letting 3 hours of football determine my mental health and well-being for a week's time. I get to relax. It's my bye week as well, so I get to just enjoy fantasy football this weekend. So I'm looking forward to it.
And Kyle?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I've been upset since what Drew talked about. I got knocked out in the chop league. Man, Nico Collins and Mike Evans, all I needed, guys, was 6 points. 6 points. And it's been upsetting, and nice shot there by Drew, but he's still mad at me from the summer when I kicked his ass all summer long in debates. So I understand.
That's a sore subject, and you probably made a mistake in awakening the beast that is Drew Scott, because
I know for sure I lost the Jonathan Taylor one, but we're gonna go back and check out the other master debation ones to see how they played out. We'll see how accurate our judges were. But I can go ahead and take an L on the JT one. JT could pretty much, I think, not play another game, and I could take the L on that one. So yeah, Kyle Kyle Indeed handed me my ass on that one, so I owed him a little bit of payback.
Yeah. But tonight we're going to get into those week 8 smash and pass plays. Fellas, we talked about it last week. Now we are for real at the halfway point of the fantasy season.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about these smash players who are outside the top 12 quarterbacks, the top 15 running backs, top 20 wide receivers, or the top 10 tight ends in the Fantasy Pros Week 8 expert consensus rankings. And Aiden hit a toot his horn talking about he's the only one that was in our Devontae when we were all scared. Listen, while we might have all been scared at the time, you can't just say hindsight is 2020 and it was bad and say that we were all taking part in that process. So let's just, Aiden, congrats on the win.
It was a great call.
It was a great call. I'm happy for you, bud. So look, as for tonight, fellas, it's smash or pass. It's week 8. There is a man who insisted that he would never be in front of a screen at any point, and yet here he is. So who better to lead off our first smash plays than the producer extraordinaire, Jim? You're taking us down Unk Lane with a quarterback who's coming off of a monster performance. Seems to have finally given that offense a little bit of life. Joe Flacco is the ECR quarterback 14. You have him due for another big week. Why is he a smash play in your eyes?
He's not just coming off a monster performance. He's coming off that little mini bye. So 10 days of rest.
True.
Gets to face a defense that has already allowed 13 passing touchdowns on the season. I know he ran a little bit in that monster performance too. I don't think we're going to see that again, so I'm not worried about it. He has, I would say, the best wide receiver tandem in the game that he's throwing to. You could, I think, inarguably top 3. I'm going to pull this stat too from the newest writer of the waiver article for fantasyandframes.com. As a Cleveland Brown, Flacco's highest QBR was 75.2. As a Bengal, his lowest was 90.9. So he's obviously enjoying success in Cincinnati, and I think he's going to finish inside the top 12, not where he's at.
Yeah, I like it, man. It's amazing how simple they made it. It's just they snap the ball and Flacco puts it in his hands, processes, and gets the ball out of his hands quickly. And like you said, he's got 2 of the best playmakers in the game to get the ball into their hands and let them do what they do best. And so it's not a lot of overthinking going on. It's just the veteran doing what he does best. And I really like what I've seen from the offense now that they've got Flacco. We don't have to watch Jake Browning anymore. So I like this one. I think he's a really good streaming option this week for teams that are dealing with buys or injuries.
Yeah, Jim. I mean, he's just a good leader too. You know, he may not be the young Joe Flacco where you take off his legs, but I think he's just a good fit for that system for what Cincinnati needs at this time. So yeah, good call there, Jim. I mean, he knows how to do it. You know, he may not have the legs like I said, but he knows how to throw the ball to those 2 really good receivers there. So I like it.
Relating to that offense, man, I probably saw one of the dumbest things I've seen probably on football TikTok in the history of ever this week, where there was some guy who just comes across my For You page who said something along the lines of, if you want to defend Jamar Chase, all you have to do is just sit at 10 yards because he does not run a route past 10 yards anymore. And I was just like, what? What are we doing?
The internet's a wild place, man.
The internet is the Wild West of football takes. But
hey, real quick, before we move off the Flacco take, question for you, Jim. If you had to pick one this week, Michael Penix or Joe Flacco?
Flacco. I don't think there's anything wrong with Penix this week. I just think Flacco has a better matchup, better weapons. And also, I mean, if you're just looking at starters, then I think Flacco, and it's probably a little bit closer, but for the rest of the season too, the other thing about Flacco is his schedule's a lot better. And I think that probably wasn't fair to Browning to make him face like the hard defenses and then bring in old man Joe and let him play all the softies. But then again, he played Green Bay. That didn't matter either. So Flacco this week and Flacco the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree. Penix does have Miami. It's an intriguing matchup for sure, but Flacco's just playing better ball than Penix is right now, so I'd want to roll with that. This one's a little even closer for me, Flacco or Rodgers. Rodgers going back to Green Bay, or Green Bay's coming to him rather, but getting to play his old team.
Rodgers might have been the smash if he wasn't playing Green Bay, and I love a revenge narrative. I love all narratives, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Green Bay's defense, I don't know that Rodgers can. Yeah, sorry, Stacey. I don't know that Rodgers can. You know what? He might be fine, but I think that Flacco has a better chance to put up monster numbers than Rodgers does, and it's kind of that simple. I would. Rodgers and Penix might be a more interesting debate based on just the pure matchups. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'd have to look closer to see what I would do there, but I think Flacco over both of them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I literally got these guys 14, 15, 16, but I've got it Flacco, Rodgers, Penix. So I agree with you. All right, Rhett, you're driving the ship. You want to do some questions, or do you want to keep smash or pass rolling?
Well, let's get some questions going.
All right.
Let's talk about.
All right, so first one, we got a trade question going on. Would you trade Chase Brown or J.K. Dobbins for Michael Pittman? I also have Daniel Jones as my QB, so if he gets Pittman, has a little bit of a stack action going on there. So, Kyle, what do you think? Would you trade either Chase Brown or J.K. for Michael Pittman?
Man, that was tough. I probably wouldn't do it. I'd probably stick with Chase Brown or J.K. Dobbins. You know. They're the lead back. I don't want to get rid of that. Chase Brown, I know, has been down, but he just kind of had a pretty good game. I kind of want to go with that and see what Chase Brown can do with Joe Flacco now under center.
Okay. See, me personally, I would trade either running back for Pittman. I'd probably rather trade Dobbins if I had to pick one to trade, but I honestly, I'd trade either one. So, Jim, we need you to break the tie. Would you?
Oh, man. I'm not. I was going to say I would hold Brown and trade Dobbins, so that's not going to help. But
there you go. Yeah, that breaks the tie.
That works.
Honestly, I would wait a week. I would just to Kyle's point of seeing what Brown can do with Flacco there.
Yeah,
and see, I don't think Pittman's going to do anything different than what he's been doing. So if you can hold a week, but I understand 6 teams on a bye, you might need a receiver that bad. But that's probably the way I'd handle it is hold Brown but trade Dobbins.
There you go. All right. Next up, speaking of Dobbins, Henry, Dowdle, Irving start 2. Irving's been ruled out this week, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 2 of 3 between Dobbins, Henry, and Dowdle. Who's the odd man out there? I got to pull up my running back rankings if one of you guys know which one you.
Based off of just pure. Looking back at last week, I mean, with Chuba back, it became a lot more of a 50-50 share than we probably wanted it to be coming off of those 2 monster Dowdle games. So just strictly off of volume, the answer probably has to be Dowdle and Henry, huh? No, Dobbins.
I've got Henry at 7, Dobbins at 13, and Dowdle down at 20. So yeah, I'd go Henry and Dobbins. Anybody disagree? Anybody want to make a case for Dowdle?
No.
Okay, easy enough. So there you go, Varsity. Hopefully that helps. We would go Dobbins and Henry. Rav, who to start and flex? Pittman, Dobbs, Jennings, Shepard, Franklin, Ailmanor. Full PPR, 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Oh damn! All of his good receivers are on IR, and then he's got CMC and White slated at running back. So he needs to play 3 of these guys between Pittman, Dobbs, Jennings, Shepard, Franklin, and Ailmanor.
We can all agree with Pittman, right?
Yeah, Pittman and Dobbs are pretty much no-brainers for me, which I'm going to be talking about Dobbs in a little while.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
But those 2 would be no-brainers for me. And then at that point, I would probably go Troy Franklin personally. I mean, he saw 10 targets last week. He didn't connect on a lot of them, but he's at least seen the volume. If Juwan Jennings wasn't playing on like 3 broken ribs and a broken leg and a bad back and a cracked neck and whatever else he's got going on, I might want to say Jennings. But with all the injuries that he's just been open about that he's playing through, I think I would lean Troy Franklin there as the third one. Do you guys
Yeah, and he gets Dallas this week, and then anybody who plays against Dallas, man, it's a party. So yeah.
Yep, exactly. Jim, you want to make a case for anybody outside of Franklin, Sterling Shepard at LKO Manor?
Those are all the same points I would have made. That's what I do. Also Franklin in the waiver article written this week on fantasyframes.com. So
go check that out. Jim knows what he's talking about.
So yeah, Franklin.
Check that out. All right,
that's gonna backfire so bad.
I mean, I agree with you. I to be completely transparent, I almost had Franklin as a smash play this week. Ladd, Sutton, Waddle, Addison start 2.
I'd go Sutton and Addison in this one.
Sutton for sure.
Addison, I just like where Carson Wentz has just been targeting him like crazy the past weeks.
Yeah, he has.
So I like to see that.
Chargers is a tough matchup, but he has been getting a lot of targets, and so
True.
Then we got Ladd and Waddle. So Waddle's got Atlanta. That's a tough matchup too. And then Ladd has got Minnesota, which is also a tough matchup. I mean, we just saw Devontae Smith torch Minnesota out of the slot, and that's where Ladd lines up. I've technically got Ladd the highest. I've got Sutton 6, Ladd 13. So I would go Sutton and Ladd personally, but I get the argument for Addison too. Either one of you guys want to break the tie between, or maybe make a case for Waddle?
I don't think I'm making the case for anything Miami related right now in that quarterback situation.
But yeah, his quarterback openly said he couldn't even see him over the line. So that's great vibes for sure.
Things are great by
Rodgers is a decent bet for fantasy this week, just purely off the fact he truly is just petty as hell. And if there's anybody that's going to use spite to fuel them for a game, I have no doubt that Rodgers is one of them. Looking upgraded running back, who should I target? Kamara, Brees, Chase Brown.
Oof.
Oh man, those are tough options, Aiden, to look to target.
Trade target. I think maybe
Brees for me.
Yeah, with the hopes that he gets traded at the deadline. I've been trying to go grab Spears in places where I can in case Pollard gets traded, but that's not necessarily an upgrade. I mean, Ken Walker continues to run well. He just doesn't get the goal line touches, but if something were to ever change in that offense, he's running really well. Man, I don't know. Maybe go try to buy Henry real quick before whenever they come off bye, and whenever Lamar comes back, they've got a pretty good stretch of games where Henry could be right back in like the weekly top 5, top 7 running back discussion every week once Lamar comes back. So maybe try to buy Henry on the cheap. I don't know. Running back's like seems like one of the toughest spots to try to trade up to try to upgrade at, because everybody wants to upgrade a running back. Nobody has good running backs, so that's kind of tough.
I kind of like trying to get Brees. Because I think, I mean, I don't even know if the coach is going to finish out the season, but
right.
If you do it now because they're about to play Cincinnati. And its price will go up. But after that, it's a bye, Cleveland and New England, which is terrible. But after that, it's Baltimore, Atlanta, Miami, Jacksonville, New Orleans. Like, it's a pretty good stretch to finish out the year. So at least with whether or not he gets traded, I don't know. Maybe the coach gets replaced, and there's that whole all right, let's play for the new guy thing that happens. I think like just because of the talent and maybe because of the schedule, the price could dictate something unique. He's probably the person I try and. But I would do it now before Cincinnati, or you're going to pay a lot for a guy that's about to go into a bye week.
Yep, 100%. Galaxy Pickers, 5-1, 13 team league. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Trade Baker for May, trying to plan for the rest of the season. Baker's weapons are hurt, has me worried. He's dealing with an injury himself. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would trade Baker for May, even if all of Baker's weapons were healthy. I'd rather have May rest of season anyway. So, if you can flip Baker for May, absolutely go do that. That one would be an easy one for me for sure. Roan, have PPR pick 3, McConkey, Waddle, Diggs, Addison, and then picking between Pacheco or JCM, have PPR. So I already talked about McConkey's in for me this week. And then we got between Waddle and Diggs. I like Diggs a lot this week. So I would go McConkey and Diggs.
And then Addison, right? Because you picked 3, and then the Pacheco or JCM.
Oh, pick 3. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, McConkey, Diggs, Addison for the pick 3. Rhett, Jim, you guys disagree?
No, I think that's the right call.
I'm
And then for
trying
me,
to
go ahead, Jim.
Cleveland's numbers against wide receivers. I think they're exploitable. They've had big name wide receivers go off, so it's probably and Miami's offense is terrible. I just don't know New England's going to need to throw that much to win the game. That'd probably be my only concern.
That is a fair concern.
But Miami's a mess, dude. Like honestly, anybody besides Achane that you want to start there at all? So
Nope.
Not really. Not if I can help it.
So I mean, at least Diggs has the pedigree, even if the matchup's not super awesome.
Right.
I would have put some thought into streaming Darren Waller, but then he went on IR today, so that's
Yeah,
done.
you won't be doing that. You
Yeah,
won't be
he
doing
did
that.
just enough to get everybody to trust him and start him, and then go on IR.
And then he bailed. Yeah.
Class, it's the Darren Waller pedigree. It's what he's done for years now.
All right, let's hit. Roan's got 2 questions for us. We'll hit real quick, and then we'll get back into the Smasher Pass. So we got the second half of this question: Pacheco or JCM. I'm going to need your help, your guys' help with these, because I have JCM 23, Pacheco 24. I've got them back to back, so I don't know if you guys have a strong feeling one way or the other about these guys this week.
I mean, I would lean Pacheco in this. I mean, I love JCM, obviously. I've been on here, it seems like every week backing him up, but it's just like, man, he's just now starting to kind of get rolling. But I actually like Isaiah Pacheco right now. I think he's getting a lot of run snaps right now. He's running hard. He's got a touchdown last week. I think he can probably build on that a little bit. And I just like the offense better in Kansas City. So I would roll with Pacheco in this situation, even though I love Krosky Merritt.
No, I think you're right, though. I think I need to flip these two and put Pacheco ahead of JCM. Because, I mean, one of the problems with JCM is he doesn't really play in negative game scripts or whenever they're trailing or whenever McNichols needs to get in. Like, JCM's not seeing the field, and Kansas City has a tough run defense already to begin with on top of that. And then he's probably going to be losing snaps while I'm assuming they'll be trailing to Kansas City. So, yeah, Pacheco's probably the right call there.
And Mariota's probably going to start. And
yep.
And Terry McLaurin's been out, so like they're down to Zach Ertz, who Mariota can't seem to get the ball to, even though Jaden Daniels can find him in the end zone like 3 times a week. Like it's all bad for that offense right now. Sorry, Jorge, if you're out there listening somewhere, but I don't see how you can start Pacheco over JC, or excuse me, how you can start JCM over Pacheco just for the tail of the 2 teams.
Yeah. And the last piece, Fannin or Hawkinson. This one, even though Fannin's been disappointing, this one's still Fannin for me.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. We'll get Ishmael. We see you, Aiden. We'll get back to you guys. But Rhett, take us back into some Smasher Pass.
Yeah, so let's bounce back on it because we just had a tight end question, and Kyle.
Yeah,
it's almost fitting. What a beautiful segue we have, because this one goes out to our boy Brandon in the chat, because you are going with a Houston Texan this week. Dalton Schultz, ECR tight end 16. Tell us about the matchup. Tell us why you like it. Texans have kind of been a little bit of a mess offensively, but you're showing faith in Dalton this week.
Yeah, and I feel pretty good about it too, going here at Dalton Schultz at tight end 16. I mean, his performances are already in the ballpark. He's finished no worse than tight end 28 on the season so far. And with tight ends, that's not a very big separation, you know. And I like this even more if Nico Collins does, in fact, miss the game. He's dealing with a concussion. He got the concussion late on Monday Night Football. They have an early window game on Sunday. So I do think that it is likely that Nico may end up missing this game. So if that happens, I really love Dalton Schultz in this situation. And look, he's getting the targets, man. I mean, he's second on the team in target share percentage, right behind Nico Collins. He leads the team in receptions, and we know Nico is still the top dog, but it's encouraging to know that Dalton Schultz actually leads this team in receptions right now. He's second in receiving yards per game with 47.3 with a 1.84 yards per route run. I think Dalton Schultz is flying a little bit under the radar. He's only owned in Yahoo at 28%, and in ESPN, he's 22%. So if you need a tight end this week with 6 teams on a bye, I think he is the perfect streaming candidate, in my opinion. Go get yourself some Dalton Schultz, at least for this week.
Yeah, I like it. I like it, especially if Nico misses. He's very much so in play. I have him at 16, tight 16 right now, but I'll probably end up moving him up a couple spots if Nico does end up getting ruled out.
And that's the thing. And I love what you hit on right there, Kyle, because on a week like this, I believe last week we started to refer to these as bipocalypses. These bipocalypse weeks where you have like 6 teams that are going to be out, and fantasy teams are ravaged. And I mean, if you have a guy who's under 30% owned, who has the sort of opportunity that Dalton Schultz has had throughout the season, at a position where simply a touchdown or 5 or 6 catches separates the men from the boys at it. I mean, it's hard to look past what you're selling there and say, oh, no, that's a bad take because it's spot on.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so let's move into this.
This isn't the last time I'm going to say this either, but isn't there something else happening this weekend?
Yep. Yeah, it's National Tight End Day.
National Tight End Day.
Yep. Yep. So that's yeah, and we've got a couple tight ends we're talking about in Smash or Pass. So it might just work.
I said it in the chat, and I could have done. All my smashes could have been tight ends, and I probably could have had half a dozen.
I thought you were going to do that, Jim. I really did.
There was other fun stuff to talk about. That's really all.
Nothing's more fun than the tight end position. What do you mean?
Well,
there's a special level of
good for a TV.
Yeah. There's a special level of sicko and perversion in fantasy football that dedicates their lives to tight ends, and there are only 3 of us that I can think of, maybe 4 if we're counting Jim. It's Howard Bender, Andrew Cooper, myself, who just has a weird fixation with this position, and maybe Jim. Those are the 4. Those are the 4 guys who have dedicated their lives to this very sick, perverse section of fantasy football analysis. So, whatever, it is what it is.
You can include me, but I'm gonna take this moment to shout out Stacey Perez too, because she is the 5th. As a matter of fact, she's saved in my phone as the tight end whisperer. So
wow,
there you go,
big time. So, Drew, you mentioned this a little bit earlier from one of our questions. One of our listeners, appreciate you all for joining us, mentioned if Romeo Doubs was going to be a starter this week or worth starting. You're about to give us that answer. In a Green Bay offense that very often over the past few years, we've always said, okay, but where's the go-to guy?
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like this season, Romeo Doubs is kind of almost maybe perhaps becoming what we would call an actual number 1 in Green Bay.
Maybe it's trending that way. At least for the last 3 weeks, Doubs has had at least 8 targets and at least 55 receiving yards for the last 3 straight games, and he leads all Packers pass catchers with a 20% target share, a 25% first read percentage, and 4 end zone targets. And those type of target numbers are really important for Doubs to be able to have fantasy value, because he's not going to do much for you whenever it comes to like missed tackles forced per attempt or yards after contact per attempt. Like whenever he catches the ball, for the most part, what you see is what you get. And so he needs the target share. He needs the end zone targets to really hit on that fantasy upside. And at least for the last 3 weeks, it's been there. And you know, I guess the icing on the cake really is just that Love is comfortable targeting Doubs around the end zone whenever they get in the scoring areas. He's very comfortable going his direction, and so that's where he can really get to that going just from like a decent flex play to having some upside whenever he has, some games where he has several end zone targets. The game like a few weeks ago, whenever he had 3 receiving touchdowns, I'm not expecting anything like that, but it's nice to know that that's at least in the range of outcomes for Doubs. And now this week he's going up against the Steelers. They've been the second best matchup for fantasy receivers based on fantasy points above expectation given up to the position. And they've also given up the 10th highest fantasy points per game to wide receivers that line up out wide, which is where Doubs lines up on over 80% of his snaps this year. Now that I've went ahead and highlighted Doubs as this consistent option that has been really solid the last few weeks, I'm sure this is going to be the week that Matthew Golden just really takes off and Doubs disappears. But nonetheless, at wide receiver 25 in the ECR, given the matchup and how involved he's been, I think Doubs is a smash play this week.
Well, I love it, man. I freaking love it. So, Drew, now you made the call. Before we get into the second set of smash players, when there are a few more questions, or you want to just get straight into the second smash round?
Sorry, say that again. I was reading the comment. What did you say?
You want to hit some? You want to hit some reader questions, or get to the second round?
Yeah. Let's hit a few more questions real quick. Would you either trade DK or Garrett Wilson for for Derrick Henry?
Cuz
I would definitely flip DK for Henry.
100%.
And Garrett Wilson's it's probably pretty close. Let me see where I got him at. I think I'd do either one of them. I would rather trade DK over Garrett Wilson, but if DK wasn't good enough to get it done, I'd trade either one of those guys for Henry personally.
Would you prefer not? Would you not sell on Garrett Wilson right now on the Tyrod Taylors coming into the mix? Is that enough of an upgrade for you to?
No. I don't think that does much for him. He was getting a good enough target share beforehand that I think that his production is going to be similar to what it's been already. I don't think that Tyrod is necessarily much of a boost to his fantasy value. I would rather trade DK though. Yeah. If you can get DK for Derrick Henry, I think that's a no-brainer at that point. Fergie or Gasden have PPR.
God, Fergie's been a monster this year.
Yeah. I gotta keep going with Fergie.
Keep rolling with that, yeah.
And the outside receivers are going to be dealing with Denver's secondary. Ferguson should have a decent opportunity. Yeah, I think that's probably the route that I would go. Is Woody Marks a buy low target in Dynasty?
Ooh.
Short answer, I think so. Yeah. If the owner is still is low enough on him for you to be able to buy low, I just don't know if you can buy low.
Yeah. Dynasty, I think he is a nice target. Redraft right now, it's a tough sell because he got 10 carries last week. It was 15 yards, and I think he had 5 targets, but there was 3 catches for 20 yards. So, wasn't a pretty week if you were Woody Marks last week.
No, he saved the day with a touchdown, so you're right.
Yeah, he got in the end zone. But, I mean, if he gets 60+% of snaps on a week-to-week basis, I'll feel decent about him as an RB2. But for whatever reason, the coaching staff keeps going back and forth between him and Chubb whenever Chubb just,
I don't know. Woody Marks would probably be an RB1 on most of my teams right now. But I still don't know. They put draft cap. I worry about teams that are bad. I worry about owning people. We're getting into the second half of the season, and I worry about teams with losing records. And he's a newish person. Do they start sitting people down when they get little nicks and scratches and stuff? And he's not, to your point, a touchdown saved his day. Is he? What are you really getting by trading for him? I loved player for player questions and stuff like that, but it's so hard without context.
100%.
If you're looking for depth, okay. But if you're looking for a starter, there's probably more dependable options with better outlooks. Breece Hall, Derrick Henry, right? Because you can get him kind of cheap right now. Talked about Chase Brown. I'm not saying you have to use all the guys that I've been talking about in the show, but I think there are better options than Woody, just because of the way the offense is trending.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, to your point, whenever we're talking about Dynasty, Woody Marks still is a day 3 running back. And we see how frequently those guys get replaced the next year in the NFL draft. And we saw the Texans do it with Dameon Pierce had that great year. And then wasn't heard from again after his rookie year. So it's tough. If you're looking for a buy low for the rest of the year, I think it's a decent investment depending on the price, but I don't know how much long-term value there is really.
Yeah, and really and truly, you mentioned the day 3 running backs, and if you are going to seek out another resource besides us, who really tends to deep dive into these things around draft season every year, and their evergreen episodes, JJ Zachariason on the Late Round Quarterback Podcast always jumps into hit rates by round, by each position at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, day 1, day 2, day 3, like all these different things. So, like,
right.
If you want to dig into that and really get into the weeds, JJ does a great job of it for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. Chris, yeah, short answer, yeah. Long answer, absolutely, hell yeah. All right, Rhett, throw us back in here.
All right, let's get back to our second round of Smash players. Jim, we've mentioned the love of the tight end position. You're digging into the well, my man. I love it. You're unabashed. You're unafraid. Cade Otton, ECR tight end 15. Egbuka happened to play last week. Still got a spare amount of targets, but Cade Otton, you're rolling with him. Tell us why.
Well, Egbuka might be the wrench in this works, admittedly, because he didn't exist last year. But last year on October 27th, National Tight End Day, when Mike Evans didn't play and Chris Godwin didn't play, Cade Otton caught 9 passes for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, Egbuka could throw that off, but they had other wide receivers. They had McMillan. He was doing all right last year. He wasn't doing as well as Egbuka, but he existed. So I think even with wide receivers around him, Otton can still produce. And I think that I was talking to somebody about this today. I think on National Tight End Day, like, you get the right coaches and the right quarterbacks and the right relationships, and that's when that comes. And then I know, Jorge, it's a narrative, but I believe in it. Like Kelsey and Mahomes and Reed, they'll do that. Kittle and Shanahan, they'll buy into it as well. And I think Baker and Otton, I think they're happy to give them those as well on this holiday. If you need a little bit more, 3 out of the last 5 games against the Saints, Otton's caught a touchdown. The last 2 games on the road, which they are this week, Otton caught a touchdown. And the Saints, they're mid against tight ends, and I did some digging there. McBride didn't catch a touchdown. I forget who the good one was that did, but they're beatable via the tight end. So a little bit of narrative, a little bit of stats, a little bit of there's a lot of hurt people around him. I think Otton is gonna smash this weekend.
I know if Chris is still in the chat, I know he's happy to hear it, because he's one of the Cade Otton truthers left. That me and him, way back the first year of this, we had the Cade Otton Jelani Woods debacle that did not age well for me. But you win some, you lose a lot in my case, but that's all right. Yeah, no, I like it. I like the call.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yes, sir.
You're good for one of these every week with me, where I look at the show sheet and I look at it and I go, wait, for real? So this week, our Kyle, wait, for real? Of the week happens to involve one of the 2 best fantasy football team names I've come up with of all time. The first one you're going to appreciate, because the best name I've ever come up with is Live Laugh Levis. And the second one is your ECR wide receiver 58, Jean-Claude Van Jefferson. Tell me why in 2025 Van freaking Jefferson is a smash play. I need you to walk me through it, because this is a surprise. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, let me preface this by saying the smash is geared towards Calvin Ridley missing the game with his hamstring injury. Let's preface it with that, okay? And obviously at ECR 58, I am not suggesting you start Van Jefferson unless you play in like a 32-team dynasty like I do. Then, well,
he's startable.
Yeah, but let's get to it. Calvin Ridley did not practice today, so I think there is good reasons to maybe hold him out with a hamstring injury. You don't want to end up with a Mike Evans situation. And in week 6 against the Raiders, when Ridley went down, Van Jefferson caught 4 balls for 75 yards. And last week, he had 4 catches for 41 yards. And over the last 2 games, he's actually tied Alec Manor for team lead in targets and receptions in these 2 games. He's also in those 2 games leading the team in yards and the leader in air yard share as well. So I do like a lot here with Van Jefferson. Even though I like Van Jefferson, the play here would probably be in a 12 regular team league, you would start Manor, okay? But I just like, with him being at ECR wide receiver 58, I really like the fact that Jefferson can catch one deep ball, go for a touchdown, and he will smash that ECR wide receiver 58. So that's really the reason why I chose Van Jefferson for this spot. But like I said, regular 12-team league, Manor's in a good spot as well.
Hypothetically, of course, because I would never bring my own fantasy teams into this. But let's just say in a very hypothetical situation where you're in a 14-team league with 33-man rosters that was full IDP, and you had at least half of your starting lineup on bye this week, would you take a flyer on Van Jefferson, hypothetically?
Are you playing me this week in that league? Hypothetically? I think you might.
No, hypothetically.
Yeah,
this different league. Yes or
no? No, but no. In all seriousness, yeah, I would, because I do think we've seen Cam Ward and him build a chemistry. They have really linked up quite a few times throughout this season. So, yes, I would, Rhett. I would stand by that. Yeah.
Did Jorge just see his bat signal? He said, "Someone say IDP."
Yeah, it came popping around the corner.
Y'all got some IDPs?
Hey, Kyle, when did you put Van Jefferson into the show sheet?
Probably about 3 hours ago.
Well, since you put him into the show sheet, his consensus rankings have moved him to 59 instead of 58. So
I'm going the wrong way.
The wrong way, no.
which is kind of funny. Which is kind of funny because Dalton Schultz actually was 17 and now he's 16, so I'm even.
Yeah, you're even out. So let's get to our last smash play because Drew, you got Jonnu Smith ECR tied in 21, and it's an interesting play because I believe Aaron Rodgers had 4 touchdown passes last week, and all of them went to the tight end position. Even Darnell Washington got in on the action, if I recall correctly. It was like 3 receptions. Darnell Washington's stat line last week was 3 receptions, 2 yards with the receiving touchdown, which is probably the funniest stat line in fantasy football history. But Pat Freiermuth came off a gigantic game, probably a fraud, considering the fact that he hasn't done it all year. But Aaron Rodgers seems to like the tight end. So is this kind of where we are with this Jonnu thing at ECR tight end 21? Are we kind of just playing a little bit of upside here this week?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, Rodgers has favored the tight end. We know Arthur Smith loves the tight end. I think it's just time to lean into that. Last week against the Bengals, the Steelers tight end room made up 50% of Rodgers' targets. And even though Jonnu Smith wasn't the most productive in week 7, he continues to be the most involved. On the season, Jonnu is second to only DK Metcalf in routes run, and he's third on the team with a 14.4% target share and a 13.4% first read percentage. And he's also tied for second among Steelers pass catchers with 3 targets inside the 20. So the main reason I wanted to find a Steelers tight end to highlight this week is because the Packers have been the 4th best matchup for fantasy tight ends on the season based on fantasy points above expectation given up to the tight end. And they've also given up the 3rd most receiving touchdowns to the tight end position on the year as well. So whenever that's kind of what I'm looking for whenever I'm trying to find that streaming tight end, that like, the guy that I'm trying to find to fill in a bye week or whatever the case may be. I'm trying to find guys that I think have a decent shot to either plenty of targets or a touchdown. And the reality is this week, Jonnu honestly has the opportunity for both. And knowing how petty Rodgers is, we talked about this earlier. I fully believe that he's going to want to throw the ball plenty against the Packers. And they also just happen to be very vulnerable to the position that Arthur Smith loves to feature the most. So with how often the Steelers rotate their tight ends, it could very easily end up being Freiermuth again, or maybe Darnell Washington that has the big day. But I'm going to put my chips on the guy that's been getting the opportunities, has been getting the snaps, has been running the routes, and has just been most involved. And whenever it comes down to it, of all people, do we really think Arthur Smith isn't going to feature his tight ends on National Tight End Day? Like, and it's a primetime game. Like, the tight ends are going to be out and about for that game. So, given the matchup, I think Jonnu's a great streaming option this week and a smash play for me at tight end 21. I've got him. Let me tell you just how much of a smash plays. I can't remember exactly, but I know I got him well above. Yeah, so he's at tight end 21. I've got him at tight end 15.
Wow. So you heard it here first from Drew. Jonnu Smith, a smash play, and Darnell Washington on National Tight End Day with Arthur Smith, a mortal lock to play some slot snaps this week, baby.
Or it could be Big Hands himself. Who knows?
I would have put in all three of them. I wish we'd done that. I wish we'd had a smash category just for tight ends this week. But the matchup, as you pointed out, Drew, the matchup is incredible. He likes throwing to all of them. We recently discovered he likes throwing the Darnell Washington rod.
Yeah.
And I think like Arthur Smith, like everything is perfect this weekend for all three of those guys to go off. I agree that Jonnu Smith is probably, I don't even know if he's the most talented, but the Arthur Smith thing kind of bumps it up a little bit. But I think Freiermuth might be better than Jonnu, but he's the least used and the least liked, so that doesn't matter. Darnell Washington, I don't have a piece of paper in here. That's what Stacey likes to reference how big his damn hands are. But yeah, Jonnu's good, but again, all three should feast on Sunday.
She's got it for you though. Don't worry. 11-inch hands.
Thank you.
Doesn't have a piece of paper, but we have the official measurements in the chat, so it's all good.
So yeah, those are our smash plays to review. Jim went with Joe Flacco and Cade Otton. Kyle went with Dalton Schultz and Van Jefferson. Drew went with Romeo Doubs and Jonnu Smith. And guys, if you're going to take those smash plays and take them anywhere and play them, where else would you go than our friends at FastDraft? Because the season's heating up and FastDraft has those new games that they hooked you up with. That Flex 6 Frenzy, which is a 10-team, 6-round game. Running backs, tight ends, or wide receivers on a 6-round, 20-second clock, which means if Jim's feeling froggy, he could stack up that Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington stack at FastDraft. Wouldn't advise it, but it's a thing he can do because his goal is to get his best 6 in PPR scoring for the Sunday slate. Or you can go that quick 6 super slam where you're picking 6 guys for the Sunday games. No salary cap, no problem at all. Pick your best 6 and make it happen over at FastDraft. So before we get into these pass plays, let's just get to this next question on the chat.
All right, so is Travion Henderson a drop to make space? He has Rico, Mason, Monty, and Charm. I don't want to drop Travion Henderson. I can tell you that right now. I mean, the reality is with him being a rookie running back, and I know even the snaps he's gotten, he hasn't necessarily looked great. I know the advanced metrics don't look great, but you don't draft rookies for what they do for you in the first half of the season. So whenever you draft a guy, especially as early as you did with Henderson, once his ADP stormed up during draft season, I don't think you can drop him because he's been disappointing through 7 weeks. I think that's kind of just part of what comes with being a rookie. And obviously you would like for him to be, looking more like Cam Scatterbo or somebody like that. But do you know how fucking terrible it would feel to drop Travion Henderson and then this week or next week you see his snaps increase and you see him start to show some of the explosiveness he showed in preseason throughout the entire college, and you sat there and held him for 7 weeks and then you give up and he just absolutely tears shit up and you have to watch him do it for somebody else. I would not be able to live with that, so I cannot drop him. He's been bad enough to the point to where if you just need to pick up somebody to play them, fine. But if the person you're dropping Henderson for, you don't need to pick up this week to play this week because you need a win this week, I just don't know who else would be out there on the waiver wire that would be a better stash than Henderson anyway.
Because, Ismail, if you drop Henderson, I can almost promise you somebody who has luxury will pick him up and wait to use him in November. And he could take off in November. He's not Caleb Johnson. Like Caleb Johnson, the rookie, I'm going to go ahead and take the L on that. I was super high on Caleb. That was my guy. That's an L for me. But Henderson is not Caleb Johnson. He's at least seeing the field. Caleb Johnson is pretty much healthy scratches, whereas Henderson is actually on the field, maybe not producing, but he is on the field. So that tells me if something were to happen to Stevenson as well, God forbid he gets an injury, he's the next man up.
Right. And so, Jim, you're a resident Patriots fan, so I want you to get in on this, and we'll throw Jorge's question just to continue the conversation. Among this group, number one, would it be Henderson for you that you would drop? And then number two, just kind of what's your feelings, what's your takeaway of the Patriots backfield right now?
Man, so it's really tough for me to be impartial about Henderson for two reasons. One, I have a team that I drafted him on, only one that I got him. I was lucky he steamed up, right? And I'm going somewhere with this. I got him in the 4th round, so it was kind of a deal. He'd been going in the 3rd round. And I hated taking him there. I get we paid so much to draft the guy and therefore we can't cut him. And Kyle makes a great point with at least he's seeing the field. But I wonder if we hadn't paid that draft price for him, would we think twice about cutting him at all?
No, probably not.
No.
And you know, the Patriots when I mean he was losing snaps to Gibson. When Gibson got hurt, the Patriots went out and looked for another running back. Yeah. I know he was outsnapped by, I don't even remember his name, and shame on me for not remembering, but the dude that got outsnapped at the end of the game, that game was over, so I don't know that counts, honestly. Like, I'm not concerned about the other dude passing him up in the last 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, agreed.
I wouldn't drop him to make room, but he's somebody I would definitely move if I needed a starter or better depth. And I think I would drop him instead of I definitely would keep Harvey over Henderson and Gordon.
Agreed. Gordon would be the one I would drop out of those three.
I only say Gordon because it's Miami. Like if Miami was a functional offense, you'd have to have like Etienne. Notably, like that was a concern. That's why Etienne goes in the 2nd round, right? Because in drafts, because he gets hurt all the time. So holding a competent, his competent handcuff makes a lot of sense, except for the fact that Miami is so bad. I think that if Miami was a functional offense, you'd have no trouble dropping Henderson, regardless of what you paid to draft him.
Right.
And it feels like, if I'm taking too long, tell me to stop. But it feels like holding Henderson is doubling down on a bad mistake that we all made when we were drafting. And I don't like to do that, but I also understand, like, yeah, maybe he does go off. But if Ramondre gets hurt, is he going to be the guy, or are they immediately going to trade for a better back? Are they going to aggressively? I know they're running out of time to do it, but are they aggressively going to try and get, I don't know, Blake Corum? Like, I don't like anybody. Yeah. Maybe not Woody Marks, but like,
who knows? Who knows? I mean, it's a fair point.
He's not doing it. And anyhow, I would drop Gordon to answer Jorge's question, but I don't feel good about that either. Like it sucks to hold Henderson. Trade Henderson. There you go. Don't drop him. Trade him. Find somebody else's one. In Dynasty, get a 3rd round pick, and anywhere else see if you can get Van Jefferson and start him this week.
Yeah, see, I'll trade you a
There
second round
is-
pick and Van Jefferson. So if you're in a league with me, we might have a deal that we can make. But and then Dylan Sampson, yeah, he's a handcuff just like any other handcuff. I mean, he's played under 20% of snaps every week since week 2. And this is Judkins' backfield. But if Judkins was to get injured, Sampson would be a factor. So it just comes down to, which different handcuff you're dropping him for, because he's just a guy that's waiting for an injury, just like most running backs that are on waivers. But yeah, you can definitely drop Sampson. All right, one more question real quick, and then we'll get into the passes and run through those. We're at 55 minutes, but would y'all trade JSN for Nico? PPR Dynasty. Trade Achane for Nico.
I just don't know. I was going to actually
Judkins, Cook.
I was actually going to talk about this. So at what point with Achane, the Miami Dolphins, say they go 1-10, 1-11, do they say, okay, Achane, you're gonna rest now because we don't want to see you get an injury here when we're pretty much wrapped up. We're going to give Ollie Gordon the run. There is some concern that Miami's going to tank at this point, and I believe in Nico Collins. I love that. I love that trade to trade Nico for Nico Collins. To trade Achane for Nico. I'm all about that.
I guess it really just comes down to what you. Yeah, it comes down to two things for me. Number one, roster construction, to Jim's point, how many receivers do you start? And then number two, for me, it would depend on if I'm a contender or not. If I'm not contending this year, I have no problem flipping Achane for Nico, because I do think Nico is the slightly more valuable dynasty asset. But I think Achane gives you the better chance to win a championship this year. And I think that they're close enough that you can hold on to Achane and you can kind of like in your mind say, I even though Nico might be the better player, I'm going to hold Achane because he gives me a better shot to win a championship. So if you're a contender this year, I would hold personally. But to Jim's point, if it's a league where you have to start 3, like if it's start 3 receivers and you have multiple flex spots on top of that or something like that, then that might change things, because you have Judkins and Cook are 2 very startable running backs. I'm assuming that's Javonte Williams is a great 3rd. Chuba is a really solid running back 4. So you have good running back depth. You can absolutely trade from that running back depth. But for me, if I'm a contender, I'm always trying to optimize any chance I have to win a championship, and I think that Achane gives you the better chance to do that this year. So for me, it would depend on what your team is looking like for this year.
Good deal. We appreciate everybody's comments and their questions. Let's get into these past guys, which we said are out inside the top 15 quarterbacks, top 20 running backs, top 35 wide receivers, or top 12 tight ends in that Week 8 Fantasy Pros ECR. Jim, we mentioned Quinshon Judkins. We mentioned the start he's had. We mentioned Dylan Sampson. We mentioned handcuffs. But you've got him as a pass play this week, despite the fact that since he's emerged, we mentioned the start Cam Scadaboo's off to as a really solid rookie running back. Judkins has been one of those guys. Yeah, you're passing him off this week. Why?
It's as a fantasy owner, I'm going to put my Pats fandom away for a second. As a fantasy owner, I hope that I'm wrong. But the Patriots haven't allowed 100 yards to an opposing running back this season. They've only allowed 3 rushing touchdowns on the year, and maybe there's some hope for a pass-catching running back, but that's not Quinshon Judkins. He hasn't had a target since Joe Flacco left, or he has had 1 target since Joe Flacco left, and he didn't catch it. So I just don't think, based on the defensive matchup and the fact that they're probably going to be playing from behind, there's a lot of room for Judkins to produce.
Fair enough. Straightforward. Good insight on that. Let's move, because Kyle, we mentioned the quarterback situation in Miami. We mentioned that Miami offense. Jim asked the question earlier tonight whether we'd be comfortable starting anybody in the Miami Dolphins offense outside of Devon Achane. Well, you're here to answer that question, because probably the second most startable guy is Jaylen Waddle, and you have him as a pass this week as ECR wide receiver 17.
Yeah, I'm not big on Jaylen Waddle this weekend, and maybe even going forward, really for the rest of the season. I mean, Jim mentioned it. Outside of Achane, there's nobody really you want to start on this Dolphins offense. I mean, will Tua finish the season as a quarterback? That's a real question. the whole offense is just in shambles. And in this matchup in particular, it's not a good one. The Falcons limit the wide receivers to the second fewest fantasy points this season. They also only allow 20 points per game, which limits, your scoring opportunities there. For me, this is just a layup to pass on Jaylen Waddle, not to beat ECR wide receiver 17. It's way too high, in my opinion. I get why, though. I understand why. With 6 teams on a bye, it pushes a lot of players up into tiers that they shouldn't be in. So I understand the reason why, but it's just too rich for me. I'm passing on Jaylen Waddle.
Any disagreement
I'm
from
nervous
anybody
about
else?
him this week as well. No, I'm nervous about him too. He was on my short list of somebody to pass on, and I can't remember where he's been lining up since Tyreek got injured, but I know that Atlanta's kind of middle of the pack in terms of fantasy points per game given up to wide receivers that line up out wide, but they give up the lowest amount of fantasy points per game to wide receivers that line up in the slot. And so, if Waddle has any slot snaps, he can have a difficult time there. If he lines up out wide, he's got to deal with AJ Terrell. The Falcons defense is tough, and then they've got a pass rush that should probably get to Watt or get to Tua pretty quickly. So Atlanta's been a tough defensive matchup this year, and so on one hand, Waddle's basically the only show in town for an offense that's going to need to move the ball, but on the other hand, that offense might look really, really, really bad once again. And Atlanta was one of the more popular DSTs on waiver wires this weekend for a reason. So, I'm also nervous about Waddle.
Yeah, I think I actually looked at the Falcons rostership. It jumped up like 35% for this week.
Yeah, I believe it.
So, Drew, let's get into your first pass. A guy who has, over the past few weeks, kind of pleasantly shocked. A couple weeks ago, he was a pinch starter that would kind of jumped out for back-to-back 100-yard games. 49ers trying to play Juwan Jennings, trying to get George Kittle back into the fold. But Kendrick Bourne, in theory, is still a factor in this offense for now. But at ECR wide receiver 29, you're telling us to maybe pass on him this week. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, Kendrick Bourne was on a heater coming into last week. He had 142 receiving yards in back-to-back weeks, but that all came crashing down against the Falcons that we just talked about being a tough matchup. Bourne was no exception to that. He had just 2 receptions for 14 yards last week, and I'm fully expecting this to be now back-to-back disappointing weeks for fantasy managers after this week. Bourne already was disappointing last week, and George Kittle had no catches on 2 targets, and that was his first game back. It's understandable. I think it's highly unlikely, especially on National Tight End Day, that George Kittle is going to have that lack of involvement. Like, if there's going to be a tight end room or a person that's going to be bought in to National Tight End Day, I feel like George Kittle would probably have a T-shirt that he's going to wear that day. So I'm fully expecting he's going to be more involved, and then we'll see what happens with Ricky Pearsall. I'm not sure, but honestly, even if Ricky Pearsall is out again, I still don't feel good about Kendrick Bourne. The 49ers, they're dealing with the Houston Texans in week 8, and only the Denver Broncos have been a more difficult matchup for fantasy receivers so far this season. So, given the difficult matchup, the fact that the pass catchers around Bourne are starting to get more healthy, and just the question marks about where the targets are going to go, I think that Kendrick Bourne at wide receiver 29, I think he's a pass for me this week. It's just a little bit too high for my liking.
I'm totally with you on that, Drew. I would even go as far as saying, you may not go this far, but I would even go as far as saying, I don't know if he's really going to be relevant the rest of the season, honestly.
That very well could be the case. That 2 weeks ago could have been the last usable game you got out of him, assuming that everybody else, ends up playing healthy the rest of the year. But yeah, I can't imagine things get any better once Pearsall gets healthy. And I mean, in CMC, I know the dude's a running back, but damn, he's like top 7, top 8 in receiving yards in the league right now. You have to legitimately include CMC whenever you're talking about the pass catchers that are healthy, because he's just as involved as most receivers in the league. So that's just another factor that most offenses don't have to deal with. And so whenever you're talking about George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, you're looking at Kendrick Bourne as a 5th option in the offense at that point. And so, I think his days are numbered, and I would not. I'm looking to get off of him this week in any league that you're thinking about starting him. Look to see if you have other options.
Fair enough. So far we've been talking about Quinshon Judkins, Jaylen Waddle, and Kendrick Bourne as pass plays. Jim, let's move back to you for your second pass play. Jaxson Dart, ECR quarterback 13 on a 16 on a week where 6 teams are on bye. Talk us through the matchup. Talk us through why you think Dart is a pass, even though he's just outside of that. He's just inside that top 15 threshold we're talking
about. If any call is going to blow up in my face in this weekend, it's this one. This is the one I'm worried about the most. But really, it comes down to a loose stat, which is the Eagles only allow 17 points, around 17 points to fantasy points to QBs. And they've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns on the season. Admittedly, one was to Dart. I do not think the Eagles, after what happened against the Giants 2 weeks ago, are going to let the Giants come in and do that to them on their home turf. I think they're not that type of team. I don't think their coach is going to want that to happen. I think that last week it looked like they fixed a couple of their issues with the offense, and it's going to force Dart into having to make some throws he's not as comfortable with. Look, he's an athlete. I love him, and I really, again, this could blow up. But I just don't see in a divisional matchup them going in, winning again, and Dart doing what he did to them 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I'm nervous about him as well. There's a league where I'm needing to look to stream the quarterback, and I'm looking at Dart, and I'm a little nervous. But to your point, the Eagles have been the 3rd toughest matchup for fantasy quarterbacks on the season. They're giving up negative 3.3 fantasy points above expectation to the quarterback position on the year, and really the only good game of fantasy quarterbacks had against the Eagles so far has been Dart, like you said, and so what are the chances at home against a division rival just a couple weeks, it's fresh on their mind a couple weeks ago, that they let Dart do that to them again? He doesn't have his top weapon there.
The problem is, like, if you're using Dart, you probably don't have anything to pivot to. Like, you probably started out poorly.
Yeah.
You started out poorly and you grabbed him, and you lucked into this one guy, and there's not 6 teams on a bye, and what's left on the waiver wire anyway. So I don't know how you move off it, but
one thing that could be on the waiver wire is Joe Flacco. If you need to know why Joe Flacco could be a better option for you, just fast forward to earlier in the show whenever Jim mentioned him as a smash play. There's guys like that, Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers, that are out there that you might be able to pivot to. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a good call. I'm nervous about Dart this week. I like Dart rest of season with the rushing upside that he has, but I think that this could be a tough week for him.
I'm not allowed to say anything about Jaxson Dart because you see this? This is my white flag. I am 1-2 against this guy. So I am no longer allowed to say anything about Jaxson Dart. I've had a weird relationship with him. I've hated on him a couple of times in my articles, Jim. I faded him twice or 3 times. I won 1. I was right once. But these last 2 times, he kind of burned me there. So I am retiring the hate on Jaxson Dart.
And wasn't the week that you were right on Jaxson Dart, you were like barely right too? Is that
barely the case? Right. Against the Saints.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it's going to be tough for everybody to be right on a week with 6 teams on a bye, unless you, I don't like him, but that doesn't mean he won't finish within the top 15 either. With 4 points, there's terrible quarterbacks out there right now. Not a lot of good options, and not a lot of good matchups either. I'm not super in love with Drake May against Cleveland, to be honest with you. Like, it's just
it's a tough matchup.
Or even Fields against the Giants, because their defense has been coming on a little bit of late. So
yep.
Anyway,
it's a tough week for quarterback for sure.
So Kyle, go ahead and give us your second pass play. Jaylen Warren, ECR running back 17. Having a good season, looked great last week, but that was the Bengals run defense. Bit of a tougher matchup this week.
Yeah, kind of like Jaylen Waddle. It just feels a little too rich here at running back 17. I am so buying in, as you talked about, Jim. I am buying into the revenge game narrative. I'm here for it. Rodgers versus Love. You know what that means, right? Rodgers is going to drink some vintage wine, and he's going to take it back, and he's going to sling the rock. Yeah, Warren might get involved in a receiving game because he does catch the ball out of the backfield. He's good at that. But he's going to want to show it, and he's going to show it, and he's going to improve on that yards per attempt, and he's actually sitting at quarterback 11 right now in yards per attempt with 7.38. And this matchup for running backs we know is not very good. Green Bay only allows the second fewest fantasy points to running backs. The Packers allow the second fewest rushing yards in the league, giving up 76.5 yards per game. I feel like this game's going to be a shootout. And to Drew's point earlier, Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the ball to the tight ends and to the wide receivers. He is going to sling it. So for me, I'm going to pass on Jaylen Warren at running back 17. Just too rich.
Yeah, he was Jaylen Warren was literally the last person I was my second pass play I'm going to talk about here in a second. It was between him and Jaylen Warren trying to decide who I was going to go with for my second pass play this week because I was the first one in the sheet this week. So that's how close I was to ended up having Warren as well. So I'm very much on board with this pick. I'm also nervous about him. Packers minus 6.1 fantasy points above expectation to the running back position on the year. Just so whatever your fantasy running back usually scores on a weekly basis, you can take about 6 points off of that, and that's what you can expect them to score against the Packers. So not a great outlook for Warren this week for sure.
No, not at all. But you mentioned that last pass play. Drew, go ahead and bring us home. With Zach Ertz on National Tight End Day. We've said it about 20 times tonight, and here you are closing out our smash and pass by poo-pooing the tight end position with Zach Ertz. But we talked a little bit earlier about Marcus Mariota, and now he's kind of just not starting the position. So I imagine that has something to do with it.
It did, yeah, and I couldn't let it be all roses for National Tight End Week. I had to throw a little poo-poo on there as well. But it's not going to be popular to tell folks that, hey, on a week where there's 6 teams on bye, I want you to pass on a tight end that's top 10 so far this season. Like that's not most people probably aren't going to be a huge fan of that. But the first obvious concern that you mentioned, Rhett, is that he's probably going to be catching passes from Marcus Mariota this weekend, and I don't love that. And then I haven't seen if they practiced today yet or not, but I know that Dan Quinn said that the plan is to have both Debo and Terry McLaurin back in practice this week. And so, last week Ertz ended up leading all Washington pass catchers and targets basically out of necessity because both Debo and McLaurin did end up missing again last week. But if both of those top 2 receivers are active, now we're talking about Ertz possibly being the third option in an offense that's catching passes from the backup quarterback. And on top of that, Ertz has a matchup with the Chiefs that have been the third toughest matchup for fantasy tight ends on the season. So despite the fact that he's been top 10 up to this point, given his matchup, the fact that the other pass catchers around him are getting healthy, and the fact that he's going to be catching passes most likely from Marcus Mariota, I don't think that Zach Ertz should be a top 12 tight end in your typical one quarterback 12-team leagues this week. I think that there's other options. I would rather stream Jonnu Smith than start Zach Ertz this week. So I already talked about Jonnu being a smash, Ertz being a pass. I have Jonnu in front of Ertz in my tight end rankings this week. So Ertz right now with his tight end 12 spot in the ECR, he's a pass for me.
All right, guys. So that's what we have. Reviewing our smash and pass plays. As smash plays this week, we have Joe Flacco, Dalton Schultz, and Romeo Doubs, Cade Otton, Van Jefferson, and Jonnu Smith. And as pass plays, we have Quinshon Judkins, Jaylen Waddle, Kendrick Bourne, Jaxson Dart, Jaylen Warren, and Zach Ertz. But guys, let's quickly get into some Week 7 reactions. I'm going to take you guys 3 questions, so you each get to take one. That's how we're going to roll. Jim, we'll start with you. Rashee Rice came back last week in his first game of the season, finished as the wide receiver 9 for the week. So how many guys are you taking over Rice for the rest of the season?
Taking over or starting over at wide receiver?
Yeah. So how many guys would you start over Rashee Rice for the rest of the season?
Two, maybe three, but probably two. Jamar Chase, thank you, Joe Flacco, and JSN. And I don't know that necessarily. Oh, man, I don't know if JSN's more talented than Rashee Rice or not. But good Lord, is he everything that Sam Darnold wants right now? But that's it.
That's true.
I think that Kansas City was making a point with Rashee Rice. I don't think he's going to do that every week, but he can do it every week. And if they did it, I mean, if they wanted to do that every week, why can't they? So I think that, given strategy, that's probably what'll stop him. But like CeeDee Lamb's been injured, so he hasn't been the guy all year. You can at least say that Rice is healthy. There's definitely something to a player coming back after not playing the first 6 weeks of the season, not as banged up as everybody else. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't take him over the other, 40 startable guys.
Yeah, fair enough. Kyle, Oronde Gasden for the Chargers came out and broke out in a big way and finished as the tight end 1 overall in Week 7. So is this a one-game wonder, or is there staying power with Gasden for the rest of the year?
We may not see 164 yards again out of Oronde Gasden, but man, he looks legit. I mean, he's a big target for Herbert. Especially down in the red zone. He's a converted wide receiver there into a tight end. I like him. I think there's real value there with him. We just may not see tight end 1 again, but I mean, I think we could see tight end 1 finish, like 10, 11, 12. That's certainly in the works there for Oronde Gasden.
Absolutely. And Drew, take us home. Travis Hunter last week played 67 snaps on offense and had an 86% route participation rate. Both of those were season highs. And I believe he turned that into 8 receptions for 101 yards as well. So finally involved that offense. Do you see Travis Hunter as a trade target, or do you expect the offense and defensive snaps to continue to fluctuate rest of the season?
I mean, I hope that what we saw is here to stay. I mean, he's ran 91 routes over the last 2 weeks, which is more than any player over the last couple weeks. So he's at this point, he's getting very involved. There's enough question marks between how BTJ is playing and things like that I think that Hunter could be a decent trade target, depending on if the person in your league isn't super high on him. We see. I talked about it earlier with Travion Henderson, and it's kind of the same thought process with Hunter. Obviously, that I think that the best of these guys is going to come in the second half. And Travis Hunter was drafted 2nd overall for a reason. This team needs help on offense, and so with the trends we've been seeing recently, I'm hopefully optimistic that we continue to see more of the same. And I do think Hunter could be an interesting buy option right now for sure.
Yeah. And so, guys, before we get out of here, do we have any other final thoughts? And do we perhaps want to continue to harp on Aiden Weingartner and his poor luck over these past couple weeks?
We got a couple questions before we get out of here. We got 2 questions, I believe, that we hadn't talked on yet. So, Jelly of the Month. I wonder what the Jelly of the Month is this month. Running backs are weak. Half PPR, can only roster 5. Playing Rico and Pollard. Ooh, yeah, you're not lying. Other running backs are Sharp, Spears, and Kyron. Oh, Kyron's on bye this week. Yeah, drop Spears to add Trey Benson to IR. Yeah, I like the idea of picking up Benson, stashing him in the IR spot. I think that's smart. And then pick up Monangai or Isaiah Davis. So I guess between those two, which one is your favorite stash? Are you stashing Monangai in hopes that the work he saw last week is more of what's to come, or are you stashing Isaiah Davis in hopes that Breece Hall does end up getting traded and he gets into a better role?
I think
there's this.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Monangai because there's a certainty situation going on here. Monangai is getting that work while DeAndre Swift is still healthy. Isaiah Davis's upside is filled on hopes and prayers, wishes and dreams. If Breece Hall gets traded, then Isaiah Davis is a magical asset all of a sudden. Now, in deeper leagues, is he worth a stash? Absolutely. But right now, I just have to look at what we're looking at present moment. Monangai has a role in that offense. He has an emerging role in that offense. I just think it's hard to overlook that right now.
Monangai,
Braylon Allen's coming back at some point too.
Monangai has picked up the other 50% of the snap share in Chicago. It was kind of split between him and I guess Johnson, but there's a scenario where in 2 weeks you're starting Monangai over Pollard.
Yeah.
All right, one more. I just traded Javonte in London for Jacobs in Rome. I don't know if it was a W or an L.
Ooh.
So
Javonte and Drake?
I would rather have Jacobs over Javonte rest of season. And I would rather have London over Rome. So, you upgraded at running back, downgraded at receiver a little bit. So, is the gap between Jacobs and Javonte bigger than the gap between Rome and London?
And the question I also ask is, was his wide receiver room weak enough to where that London upgrade made it worth it to or was his running back room long enough? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Was it strong enough to handle the downgrade?
Right. Yeah. Because Rome Odunze's usage the last few weeks has been really interesting because he went from having a wide receiver 1 usage to being used more like a wide receiver 2 the last couple weeks. And so there's definitely a clear downgrade going from London to Rome, but I would rather have Jacobs and Javonte rest of season. So yeah, to your point, I think this is honestly a really well balanced trade. I think it just really comes down to what your team needed. So I think that's what a typical good redraft trade looks like, honestly.
Yeah, Jacob, you didn't win and you didn't lose. You tied.
Yeah. Which is kind of the goal.
You'll need to see how the season plays out to see how that one plays out. And then we'll let our man Aiden close us out here with the last question of the night. What if Pollard gets traded to the Chiefs? Could be very fun for fantasy. Yeah, I get I don't know. Is Pollard that much better than Pacheco?
Yeah, no.
I don't know. It just seems like it would be just that much more of a murky running back room. If Pollard ended up being the one which if they traded for Pollard, obviously you would hope they would have a plan for him and that he would be the guy. I'm assuming at that point if Pollard steps into the Pacheco role, sure. But Pollard hasn't really looked great this year, so I don't really know if I'm holding out hope that he gets traded anywhere because I'm not really sure if it's going to matter because I don't really know if he's got much left in the tank. But that's just me.
No, I'm with you, Drew.
So before we get out of here, guys, Kyle, Jim, thank you for joining us so much tonight. Kyle and Drew, appreciate y'all being with us as always. Jim, do you have any parting shots for the people? You came in tonight, you crushed it, my man.
Oh, thanks, dude. Y'all can make fun of National Tight End Day if you want to, but if you go back and look at stats from last year,
it paid dividends.
I'm so excited about it. It literally paid dividends. And I was debating whether or not to mention that coming on here, and I hope lines don't move too much before Friday, but go take a look if you're into that type of thing. There's some really cool stuff that happened last year, and I think ways to capitalize. And I know I've mentioned a couple of times, but I'll say it one last time. I'm temporarily writing the waiver article on fantasyframes.com. And you can find some of my stuff there, at least for now. Some stats, which is not something I'm familiar with until really recently. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Oh, dude, you got it. Door's always open. Kyle, Drew, any final thoughts?
No, just maybe check out my plays and fades for week 8. It will come out maybe tomorrow or so. FantasyandFrames.com. It's like a start-sit article, so check that out.
Yep. Then I've got my weekly wide receiver cornerback matchup article for Fantasy Alarm coming out tomorrow, early afternoon tomorrow as well. So if you want to see what some matchups some guys got lined up at wide receiver and corner,
give us a tease, Drew. Give us a tease. Who's in it?
I talked about Romeo Doubs already.
Okay.
I like him a decent amount this week because of the matchup. You talked about Jaylen Waddle. One reason I was considering putting him in there was because of what I saw whenever I was doing some research for the wide receiver cornerback matchup article. So we were pretty much in lockstep with that one because of the research I was doing for that. So
Cool.
So appreciate all of you joining us tonight. We appreciate every single comment, every question, every interaction. Really, we can't do this show without you guys. And we're going to do it again next week.
Cortland Sutton to the moon.
Cortland Sutton to the moon.
He's got the Cowboys this week. So
that said, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back next week at that Week 9 Smash or Pass. For myself, Rhett Manuel. For Kyle Ziegler, for Drew Scott, and producer Jim, I'm Rhett Manuel. We are Fourth and Frames. Toodles.